Have you ever stopped to wonder who's actually footing the bill for our peace and comfort? Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're unraveling a concept that's been deeply woven into the fabric of human society literally since day one. We are talking about the hidden, often ignored cost of the scapegoat. And to kick things off, I want to invite you into a pretty chilling thought experiment. Picture a city called Omelas. It is the absolute, unquestionable, perfect utopia. We're talking no kings, no slaves, no poverty, no crime, and definitely no economic crashes. The people living there, they're brilliant, constantly surrounded by incredible art, music, and just pure joy. It's a place so flawlessly happy, it kind of feels like an impossible dream. But there is a catch, a terrifying switch that actually makes this whole paradise possible. Here is the dark twist. Deep underneath this perfect city, locked away in a cold, damp basement, sits a single child, neglected, starving, and chained in absolute misery. But honestly, the real tragedy here? Everyone in the city up above knows that child is down there. They know their amazing festivals and their pristine society are entirely dependent on this one kid's endless suffering. Because the rule is, if anyone rescues them, the entire utopia instantly collapses.
So I've got to ask you, is collective happiness worth a single innocent life? Would you personally accept that societal bargain? Now, this scenario comes from a very famous story by Ursula K. Le Guin, but it's actually a mirror reflecting right back at us. Because the hard truth is, we make similar, entirely invisible trade-offs every single day. We kind of just accept that someone, somewhere, has to lose so the rest of us can win.
Now, this whole instinct, definitely not a modern invention. If we look back at ancient Mesopotamia, sacrifices were highly practical. It was all about appeasing angry gods during severe economic crises. Then, ancient Greece evolved the practice into these massive, grand, divine festivals, while Rome focused more inward on Stoic purity. And in Abrahamic traditions, we literally get the term scapegoat, a physical goat that carried the community's sins out into the wilderness. But you have to wonder, was any of this really about pleasing the gods?
Well, early sociologists, like Emile Durkheim, kind of called bluff on that. He realized these sacrifices weren't really about the divine at all. They were essentially the ancient world's most extreme team-building exercises. Think about it. When a fractured tribe gathered for a sacrifice, that intense, shared act generated immense social solidarity. It was much more about creating a highly unified us in a very dangerous world.
Think of it like the ultimate primal gift. Marcel Mauss heavily championed this idea. In ancient societies, giving a gift created a massive debt, which bound people together. Offering a sacrifice? That was the ultimate debt that tied every single member of a society to one another. You could say the spilled blood was basically the ink of the very first social contract, guaranteeing survival through shared collective guilt.
Which brings us right to René Girard's brilliant, if totally unsettling, theory. He argued that any society naturally builds up toxic jealousy and tension. It's almost like a communal road rage. And if left unchecked, this explosive tension would absolutely tear the community apart. So, society unconsciously agrees to discharge all of that pent-up anger onto a single, marginalized victim, our scapegoat. Once they are exiled or destroyed, boom, the tension detonates safely, and peace is momentarily restored. All right, let's fast forward to the modern era. We aren't sacrificing animals at stone altars anymore, right? Well, if we look through the lens of thinkers like Karl Marx, the physical sacrifice didn't actually disappear at all. It just evolved. In this view, the modern scapegoat often looks a lot like the working class. Millions of people consumed by the sheer machinery of capitalism, trading their health, their time, and their youth to keep the economic wheels turning. It ensures progress and stability for the whole, but the sacrifice is no longer a bloody ritual. Now, it's just the daily grind. Let's put this logic to the test with a classic modern moral dilemma. Imagine you're driving at high speed, your brakes completely fail, and you have a split-second choice to make. Straight ahead is a massive, joyous wedding party. But on the side of the road, there are two innocent children playing. Do you swerve and sacrifice the two kids to save the many? Ultimately, who becomes the scapegoat? If you ask the heavy-hitting philosophers, you're going to get two totally opposite answers here. Jeremy Bentham's utilitarianism argues for the greatest good for the greatest number. He'd say, yes, tragically, you have to do the ruthless math and sacrifice the few to save the many. But Immanuel Kant? He strongly disagrees. Kant argues that human beings are an end in themselves. They are never just a tool. You can't ever sacrifice basic human dignity just to make the math work out nicely for everyone else. But hey, this isn't just dusty textbook philosophy. We see it everywhere in pop culture.
Take the film The Killing of a Sacred Deer. It completely forces a successful modern doctor to perform an ancient, brutal sacrifice. To restore cosmic balance, he literally has to choose one of his own family members to be the scapegoat. It entirely strips away the illusion of our civilized modern world, revealing that ancient, terrifying mechanism operating right beneath the surface.
And for the ultimate stress test, think back to The Dark Knight. The Joker's famous boat experiment is basically unlicensed sociology at its finest. He puts innocent civilians on one boat, prisoners on another, and gives them both the detonator to the opposite ship. It asks the terrifying question, will civilized people immediately revert to barbaric scapegoating and push the button when their own survival is on the line?
And the brilliant twist at the end of the film? Batman willingly becomes that societal scapegoat. He actively absorbs the blame for crimes he didn't even commit just to protect the fragile moral order of Gotham City. He takes the monumental fall so the entire system doesn't collapse into chaos. It's the exact same ancient dynamic we've been talking about, just wearing a cape and a cowl.
So this brings us to the absolutely crucial question. Can we ever break this historical cycle? Are we just doomed to always need someone suffering in the basement of Omelas so the rest of us can thrive? Well, let me introduce you to a really powerful philosophical tool that was designed to do exactly that. Enter American philosopher John Rawls. He came up with what is basically an ultimate reset button, a thought experiment called the veil of ignorance. Imagine you have to design the rules of a brand new society from scratch, but you have total amnesia. You don't know if you'll be rich or poor, what race you'll be, or what your health status is. Rawls argued that literally no rational person would ever design a society with a scapegoat, because they'd be absolutely terrified of randomly waking up as the victim. Under those conditions, true justice means fiercely protecting the most vulnerable.
And that brings us to a profound, deeply emotional rejection of the scapegoat system found in Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov. The character Ivan wrestles with this exact agonizing problem and makes a definitive choice. He says that if the price of eternal harmony and perfect happiness is the torture of even one innocent child, he returns his entry ticket. He outright refuses to accept a world where justice is built on the bones of the innocent.
So, that leaves us with a final thought to wrap up this explainer. It's incredibly easy to want the perfect utopia. I mean, we all do. But are you willing to look closely at who might be secretly paying the price for your peace? Whether it's the unseen worker in a distant factory, the marginalized group carrying society's blame, or just the quiet sacrifices made around us every single day. Who is in the basement of your Omelas? I'll leave you to ponder that one. Thanks so much for exploring this fascinating dynamic with me.